Hey there, it's Laurel. Welcome to another Simply Card Making video. And today I am taking part in a blog hop. We are showcasing the Tons Fall 2015 release. And today I'm going to be making this card using one of the stamp sets from the release. It's a layering leaf stamp set. Absolutely cool. And I'm going to show you how I made that striped background there. Now this was a technique I saw on Gina Kay's blog. I'll be sure to link to her in my blog post. I saw this and thought it was absolutely brilliant. So I'm taking her technique and just adding my own personal little spin on it. But when I saw it, I was completely blown away. So this is a piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock, regular cardstock that's alcohol marker friendly. And I've got 3 different color Copics here, and I'm just drawing on some lines. I'm trying to make a rustic kind of Thanksgiving themed card, and anytime I think of Thanksgiving or even Halloween, I always think of brown, orange, and purple. I do not know why, but I do. So I'm going in and just coloring in these stripes, and I admit, and looking at this, and even when I was doing it, and looking at this now as I'm doing my voiceover, this isn't very pretty, and that's okay. It's okay to think that because I'm with ya. I hear ya. But I'm just going in, making sure that all that white card base is covered up with this marker here and this a little stripe design. I went ahead and pulled out my Misty because it's going to make this a lot easier. Now this stamp set that I'm using here by the ton, it's actually a layering leaf stamp set. So it has the base, and then all those other outline images are what you stamp over the top to create these beautiful layered leaves. I almost said florals. And you'll see other hoppers using this stamp set in the way that it was intended, but I wanted to use it differently. I wanted to show you, some people might be intimidated by layering stamps, but I just wanted to show you a different way that you can use it. So I'm just taking those solid stamped images, which would be the base in creating your layered image, and I'm just going to use those solid ones today. So I'm kind of lining them up on my card base, just making sure that I've got a nice scattered look of leaves there, and then I'm going to take that lid of the Misty and stamp down. It's going to pick up all of my stamps, and as long as I keep that card nestled there in that left hand corner, those stamps are going to be stamped exactly where I want them to be. So I'm going to ink up all of those leaves with some Versamark ink, which is a clear sticky ink, because we're going to heat set that. We're going to sprinkle on some clear embossing powder. I am using super fine embossing powder by Ranger. So I am just going to sprinkle that right over the top of all of those images that I just stamped with that Versamark ink, and then heat set it with my heat tool. Any embossing powder that is sticking where I don't want it to be, which happens a lot, I'm just taking a dry brush and just brushing it away, just removing the embossing powder where I don't want it to be. And then I'll heat set that with my heat tool. Now I have found that anytime I use my heat tool, I get better results if I allow my heat gun to heat up for a good 10 to 15 seconds if you can before taking it to your project. So you can see how it's very quickly melting that embossing powder because it's all good and heated up. So I'm just going in, making sure that everything's nice and heated up. Now I'm working off of that Ken Oliver craft mat, you know, the one that I ran over with my card to check the durability. And I love it because my paper is not blowing all around while I'm heat setting my project here. So that's awesome. Anyway, sorry about that, just rambling. So I'm making sure that all of my images have that embossing powder good and melted, and you'll know it's good and melted when you get that nice shine. And then I'm ready to go on to the next project. Now this still isn't looking so good, and that's okay because I'm with you. I've got 2 different color distress inks here. I'm using Walnut Stain and Gathered Twigs. Now on Gina Kay's sample, she did black and it was so pretty. I'm going to go in with these 2 color distress inks. I am using distress inks because I love the colors of all the distress inks. They blend absolutely beautifully with each other, and I love how they react with water, and that's going to be my little spin on this technique, is we're going to add a little bit of water flicking to the top. So I'm using the round blending tool. If you don't have this kind of tool, you can use like a makeup sponge or something like that. And I'm going in with the Gathered Twigs first, and you can see how that striped background is really starting to pop. Then I'm going to go in with the Walnut Stain and kind of finish it off and add that deep dark brown. The areas, all the images that are heat embossed, that embossing powder is resisting all of the ink that I'm putting down. So all that striped background that was created with those markers are really popping through, and I just think that is the coolest thing ever. I love it. So that's where using the solid image really comes into play. So you can try this technique with any solid images that you have in your stash. Now I'm going in with the spritzer and I'm just spritzing in some water. Again, I love how the distress inks react with the water. So I'm just adding some water, blending in those 2 browns together, and also creating fun little water drops there in the background. And you can see how quickly the distress inks react with that water. Then I'm going to take a dry cloth and I'm just going to kind of buff over all of the embossed leaves there to remove any ink that might be sitting on top of that embossing powder, melted embossing powder. Because those are all embossed, it's going to resist all of that ink. It's just so cool. See? Isn't that neat? Now it's time to work on the sentiment. I've got that Happy Thanksgiving set from that same stamp set, and I'm using 2 different color distress markers here. I'm going to go in and just color the sentiment with that purple marker. I'm using the side of my brush to make sure I've got all that purple just colored on right onto that sentiment. Then I'm going in with an orange and just dabbing little bits of orange here and there. And then you're going to get this really cool look in the sentiment. I'll show you close up in just a second. So that's just a scratch piece of Nina Solar White cardstock, the same cardstock I used for the other piece. And then I didn't add any water or anything. And once you're done, you can see, isn't that cool? I love the purple and the orange. I just think that's so neat. So that's something you can do with your distress markers to create a really unique colored sentiment. Then that is some Ripe Persimmon Distress ink. I just decided to add a little bit of orange there. Then I cut that strip at a diagonal there, and we're going to mount that onto my card base. But first I'm going to go around the edges of that strip just to add a little bit more definition and draw a little bit more attention to that sentiment strip, since so much is going on in that background there. Those are some foam squares, little double-sided foam squares. I thought popping that up would be cool. You can also layer that down flat if you wanted to. That is some Nina Desert Storm Craft cardstock. So I'm just going to mount that panel right onto that card base there. That's an A2 card base, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I'm going to peel off the backing papers of that sentiment strip and just lay that right down. And then just cut off any excess that's hanging off the side, and then there's that card. I also created a second card using the layering leaves from the stamp set, and instead of embossing them in clear, I embossed them in white. And I'm going to show you that right now so you can see the 2 different looks. The background, the striped background is still there. It's subtle. I use the same distress inks over the top, but this time I use some white embossing powder. So you can see you can get 2 totally different cards with the same technique. I just think that technique is brilliant. Thank you, Gina. So here's the 2 cards I made. Well, actually, I only made 1 card in the video, but here's the 2 cards that I've got for today's hop. I also have 1 more card over on my blog using another stamp set from this release, so be sure to check it out. Maybe think snowflakes. Yep, because that's the other card I've got over there on my blog. So if you haven't already, please click on that click here to subscribe button, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. I also have a giveaway going on over on my blog. So if you leave me a comment over there, you could win a stamp set of your choice from the Tons 2015 fall release. Just saying. Have a great day.